Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time in all our lives when we must confront an uncomfortable truth. It's a truth that determines the way we are seen, the way we are treated, and ultimately the way we experience this world. That truth is this: people will treat you how you let them. It's a powerful statement and one that should make you pause. But this isn't just about how others treat you. No, it's about how you allow it to happen. The behavior of others toward us is not simply a matter of chance. It is the reflection of the boundaries we set or fail to set. If you want to know the secret to being respected, to standing tall with confidence, and to creating an environment where your worth is not just acknowledged but honored, then this speech is for you. I urge you to stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to set the standard and how to make sure others follow it. When you walk into a room, before you've said a single word, before you've made a request, before you've even made eye contact, you're already communicating something powerful. And the truth is, people are always watching. They're reading your posture, your energy, the tone of your voice, and even the silence between your words. Whether you realize it or not, you are always teaching people how to treat you. It doesn't start when you set boundaries with words. It starts long before that. It starts with what you allow, what you respond to, what you let slide, and what you let settle into silence. The world takes cues from how you carry yourself. If you constantly put yourself last, people learn to do the same. If you accept disrespect under the disguise of keeping the peace, people take note and begin to believe that your peace is negotiable. Every compromise you make on your worth teaches them something. And every time you fail to speak up when you're being mistreated, you inadvertently whisper to the world, "This is okay with me." The problem is not always the people who mistreat us. Often the bigger problem is the silence we offer them in response. Silence that comes from fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of abandonment, fear of being misunderstood. But that silence doesn't protect you. It betrays you. Because what you don't say becomes the standard. What you don't address becomes the permission. And what you allow becomes your message. You might think you're avoiding conflict, but what you're actually doing is reinforcing behavior that hurts you. People don't just wake up and decide how they'll treat you. They test the waters, they take small steps, they make subtle comments, they push lightly to see how far they can go. And if you respond by shrinking, laughing it off, or brushing it aside, they learn that you're someone who won't push back, that you're someone who prioritizes their comfort over your own dignity, that you'd rather be accepted than respected. And once they learn that, they adjust their behavior accordingly, not out of malice, but out of habit, because people treat you according to the cues you give them. Now, here's what no one tells you. Teaching people how to treat you isn't always loud. It doesn't always require shouting or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes it's the quiet, consistent refusal to allow certain patterns in your life. Sometimes it's walking away instead of arguing. Sometimes it's setting a boundary and not explaining it 100 times just to soothe someone else's discomfort. Sometimes it's the boldness of saying no without a reason, or saying that's not okay with me without apologizing for feeling that way. When you begin to teach people how to treat you intentionally, you may lose some of them. That's true. Some people are only in your life because they benefited from your silence. They were comfortable as long as you made yourself uncomfortable for them. And when you finally speak up, when you finally say, "I won't accept this anymore," it unsettles the balance they had with you. But don't let that scare you. Let it free you. Because any relationship that depends on your silence, your shrinking, your self-betrayal is not a relationship built on love. It's a transaction built on control. And understand this: teaching people how to treat you is not just about them, it's about you. It's about learning to value yourself enough to stop making excuses for bad behavior. It's about looking in the mirror and deciding that you are worth the discomfort of speaking up. It's about realizing that peace bought through your own silence is not real peace. It's just the absence of noise, and silence can be the loudest betrayal of all. So many people live their whole lives waiting for others to just magically understand their worth. They hope people will notice their sacrifices, recognize their kindness, and just somehow know how to treat them right. But that's not how it works. You have to demonstrate it. You have to model it, and you have to reinforce it. You can't whisper, "Respect me," and then scream, "I'm okay," when someone disrespects you. You have to be consistent in your message, because every interaction is an education, and you're the teacher. This doesn't mean you become rigid or hostile or hard. It means you become clear, and clarity is kindness to both you and others. When people know how you expect to be treated, they either rise to meet you or they remove themselves, and either outcome is a blessing. You don't need everyone to agree with your standards, but you do need to be loyal to them, because no one will protect your boundaries more fiercely than you do. No one will honor your worth more honestly than you demand it. It begins with small acts of self-respect. Saying no when something doesn't sit right with your spirit. Speaking up when a joke goes too far. Choosing to leave the table when respect is no longer being served. Each of those moments tells the world, this is how I expect to be treated. This is the standard I live by. And eventually, something shifts. You'll begin to attract people who don't just respect you, they're drawn to the way you respect yourself. They don't question your boundaries, they value them. They don't test your limits, they honor them. Because when you treat yourself like you matter, the world learns to follow your lead. Boundaries are often misunderstood. People hear the word and immediately imagine distance, rejection, confrontation. They picture closed doors, raised voices, or the cold sting of silence. But boundaries are not about building walls to keep people out. They are about creating space where love, respect, and understanding can actually grow. Boundaries are not an act of aggression. They are an act of grace. They are not about controlling others. They are about honoring yourself. When you set a boundary, you're not saying, "I don't want you near me." You're saying, "I want to have a relationship with you that feels good to me, too." It is an invitation to connect with you in a way that is safe, healthy, and mutually respectful. Without boundaries, relationships lose their balance. One person begins to carry the weight. One person compromises too much. One person says yes too often. And over time, resentment starts to grow in the silence where your no should have lived. The absence of boundaries doesn't make a relationship stronger. It makes it shakier, because without clarity, people begin to assume, and assumptions left unchecked can damage even the deepest bonds. So many of us were raised to believe that saying no is unkind, that protecting our time makes us selfish, that asking for what we need means we're difficult or demanding, and so we shrink, we smile through discomfort, we accept treatment that bruises the spirit just to be liked, just to keep the peace. But here's the truth. Peace that costs your voice is not peace at all. It is quiet suffering. It is internal chaos wearing a polite face. And the longer you live that way, the more distant you become from your own needs. You forget what it feels like to be honored because you've been so busy being agreeable. Boundaries are not signs of weakness. They are the language of strength. They say, "I know who I am, I know what I need, and I believe I am worthy enough to ask for it." They don't make you difficult, they make you clear. And clarity is a gift in any relationship. It gives others a roadmap for how to love you well. It gives them the information they need to show up fully, without guesswork, without confusion. Most people are not trying to hurt you on purpose. They are just navigating life from their own perspectives. But without your boundaries, they may never know what feels like harm to you. And if you never speak it, you will always be healing from wounds that could have been prevented with one honest conversation. The beauty of a boundary is that it invites real connection. It says, I want to stay in this relationship, but I want it to be healthier. It says, I care enough about you to be honest with you. It says, I am not walking away, I am just walking in a way that protects my peace. It's not a wall meant to divide, it's a bridge built with intention. When someone respects your boundary, it deepens the bond, it strengthens the trust. And when someone cannot respect your boundary, it reveals something you need to see. Either way, the boundary serves you. It brings clarity where confusion once lived. But setting boundaries also means being prepared to uphold them. Because the truth is, not everyone will respond well to your change, especially if they benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. They might push back, they might guilt trip you, they might call you cold, selfish, or distant. But do not let that shake you. That reaction is not about your boundary, it is about their adjustment to your growth. And your job is not to make them comfortable at the cost of your own well-being. Your job is to stay rooted in your truth, even when the wind of their opinions tries to sway you. Think about it. The people who truly love and value you won't resent your boundaries. They will welcome them, because those boundaries help them understand how to love you right. They remove the guesswork and eliminate confusion. They protect the relationship from resentment, miscommunication, and burnout. Boundaries create conditions for love to breathe, for trust to flourish, for respect to grow. They are not the end of intimacy. They are the foundation of it. You are allowed to say, this doesn't work for me. You are allowed to say, I need more time. You are allowed to say, I'm not available for that kind of conversation. You are allowed to not answer the phone. You are allowed to not explain yourself. You are allowed to be the protector of your own energy. That is not cruelty. That is self-respect. That is you teaching others that your life is sacred ground and they must tread with care. Too many people wear themselves out trying to be everything to everyone, thinking that by doing so, they'll earn love or approval. But love that has to be earned through self-abandonment is not love. It is control. And approval that requires you to ignore your needs is not approval. It is performance. Boundaries break that cycle. They say, I am enough as I am. I do not need to overextend myself to be worthy. I do not need to suffer to be seen. When you set a boundary, you are reminding yourself and the world that you matter too. It's easy to feel guilty. It's easy to feel like you're letting people down. But what you're really doing is showing up with honesty. And honesty is the highest form of love. It might feel uncomfortable at first. You might tremble when you say it. Your voice might shake. Your hands might sweat. But speak anyway. Shake anyway. Because every time you do, you're building a life rooted in truth instead of obligation. You're building a life where you don't have to lose yourself to keep anyone else. You're building a life where love, respect, and peace are not rewards for being less of yourself, but natural results of being fully you. There is something sacred about knowing your worth. It is not pride. It is not arrogance. It is not walking around with your chin too high or your heart too cold. Knowing your worth is a quiet power. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself because it is rooted so deeply inside of you that the world feels it before you ever speak it. It's in the way you say yes with intention. It's in the way you say no with confidence. It's in the way you walk into a room without shrinking or apologizing for your existence. When you know your worth, you stop chasing what was never meant for you, and you stop accepting what you were never meant to carry. But this is not something most people are taught. From a young age, we're often taught to prove our worth, to earn love by pleasing others, to chase validation through performance, to settle for crumbs and convince ourselves they are a feast. We are praised for being agreeable, for being flexible, for being nice at our own expense. We are taught to believe that our value is conditional, conditional on being liked, conditional on being needed, conditional on being useful. And so we perform, we bend, we stay quiet, we stay too long, we give too much. And somewhere along the way, we forget that worth isn't something you earn, it's something you already have. You were born worthy. Before you could speak, before you could give, before you could prove anything to anyone, you were already enough. That truth didn't change. It just got buried under the expectations of a world that benefits when you doubt yourself. But doubt does not change your worth. Mistakes do not change your worth. Rejection, failure, heartbreak, none of those things make you less valuable. They are part of life, not proof that you are undeserving. The only thing that changes when you begin to believe in your worth is you. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you choose. Your entire life begins to transform when you stop settling for less than what you were created for. When you truly know your worth, you stop begging people to see you. You stop explaining yourself to those who have already decided not to understand you. You stop lowering your standards just to feel wanted, and you stop making excuses for behavior that is beneath the life you are meant to live. You realize that you are not a burden, you are a blessing. You are not desperate, you are discerning, and anyone who cannot see that does not deserve a front row seat in your life. The problem is not that we aim too high, it's that we get too comfortable with the low. We get used to being overlooked. We get used to being last on the list. We get used to broken promises, conditional love, half efforts, and the kind of silence that feels more like punishment than peace. And over time, that becomes normal. But just because something becomes familiar doesn't mean it's right. Just because you've gotten used to being treated a certain way doesn't mean you're supposed to stay in that pattern. You don't have to settle for relationships that leave you empty. You don't have to settle for jobs that drain your spirit. You don't have to settle for friends who disappear when you need them most. You don't have to settle for a life that constantly asks you to shrink, to hide, to fit into a mold you've outgrown. There is more for you. But you have to believe you're worth more before you can receive it. And here's the truth no one talks about. When you stop settling, you will be tested. You will be tempted to go back to the old familiar places. You will miss people who were never truly for you. You will be called difficult, ungrateful, maybe even selfish, because the moment you stop accepting less, you disrupt the comfort of those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. And that's okay. Let them be uncomfortable. Your growth is not meant to be convenient for others. You are not responsible for shrinking so that others don't feel small next to your rising. Walking in your worth will cost you some things. It might cost you relationships that were built on your silence. It might cost you opportunities that demanded too much of your soul. It might cost you the version of yourself that was always available, always agreeable, always performing. But what you gain is so much greater. You gain peace, you gain clarity, you gain confidence, you gain a life that feels like truth instead of a long performance. You gain the ability to say, this is who I am, this is what I deserve, and I will not settle for anything less. This world will always try to convince you to settle. Settle for being quiet. Settle for being small. Settle for being chosen second. But do not fall for it. Every time you say yes to something beneath you, you are saying no to something that's waiting to bless you. Every time you accept less, you block the path for something greater. Life expands or shrinks in proportion to your self-worth. If you believe you are only worthy of scraps, scraps will become your portion. But if you believe you are worthy of the feast, you will not rest until you sit at the table you were always meant to dine at. You do not have to explain why you won't accept poor treatment. You do not have to prove why you deserve more. You only have to decide Decide that you are worthy of respect, of love, of peace, of joy. Decide that you are no longer available for relationships that exhaust you. Decide that you will no longer chase people to convince them of your value. You don't chase what belongs to you. You don't beg for what you already deserve. There is something unshakable in a person who knows their worth. They do not flinch in the face of rejection. They do not lower themselves to be accepted. They understand that anything that requires them to become less is not meant for them. And they trust that the right people, the right opportunities, the right path will never ask them to settle in order to belong. So walk in that truth. Carry your worth like armor. Protect it like treasure. Live it like a birthright, because that's exactly what it is. You are worthy, and you do not have to settle to prove it. There comes a point when you realize that not everything is worth your energy. Not every invitation needs a reply. Not every argument deserves your voice. Not every relationship has to be saved. And not every storm requires your presence. That point is the awakening moment when you understand that your peace is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It is not a wish. It is a boundary. Your peace is not something you bargain for. It is not something you apologize for. It is non-negotiable. Peace is not the absence of noise. It's the presence of clarity. It is not about silence. It's about alignment. It's about being able to sit with yourself and feel whole. It's about protecting your spirit from anything that threatens to fragment your center. When you learn to prioritize peace, you stop volunteering for chaos. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop opening your door to people who only come to bring confusion, manipulation, and drama. You start listening to that quiet voice inside, the one that says, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to fix this. You don't have to carry what was never yours to begin with. So many people mistake peace for passivity. They think if you're not fighting back, you must be weak. They think if you're not defending every move, you must be unsure. But peace is not weakness. It is power under control. It's walking away without setting the whole room on fire. It's letting go without bitterness. It's choosing stillness in a world that profits from your distraction. And that choice doesn't make you less, it makes you free. You see, when your peace becomes a priority, you begin to move differently. You no longer tolerate the same cycles. You don't stick around for one-sided conversations. You don't entertain people who drain you just because you used to know them. You don't stay in rooms where you're constantly shrinking, where your name is only spoken in whispers, or where your joy makes others uncomfortable. You realize that your presence is a gift, and not everyone knows how to treat it. So you stop handing it out carelessly. You get selective, not out of arrogance, but out of self-respect. Protecting your peace also means protecting your time, your energy, and your mental space. It means learning to say no without guilt. It means not answering calls that only come with problems and never solutions. It means not giving your best to people who always meet you with their worst. It means not being pulled into emotional whirlwinds just because someone else hasn't learned how to sit with their own discomfort. You are not responsible for healing wounds you didn't cause. You are not obligated to be anyone's emotional punching bag. Peace requires boundaries, and boundaries require courage. The people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your peace to prove your loyalty. They will never put you in positions where you have to abandon yourself to keep them. They will not punish you for choosing calm over chaos. They will understand that when you protect your peace, you protect your ability to show up as your best self. And anyone who sees your peace as a threat is not aligned with your future. They are part of the noise you are learning to leave behind. Choosing peace may come with loss. It may mean letting go of familiar places, familiar patterns, even familiar people. But don't confuse comfort with peace. Just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because you've managed to survive in noise doesn't mean you're supposed to stay there. Peace isn't always soft, it's often hard-won. It requires difficult decisions, uncomfortable honesty, and deep trust in yourself. But once you find it, you will never again settle for anything less. Let people call you distant. Let them call you selfish. Let them say you've changed, because the truth is, you have. You've changed your priorities. You've changed your patterns. You've changed your definition of what's worth your energy. You've stopped chasing peace in places that only ever gave you pain. You've stopped explaining your worth to people who only see you through the lens of their own projections. You've stopped fighting battles that leave your soul bruised. That's not selfish. That's survival. That's growth. That's wisdom. There's something sacred about protecting your peace. It's the highest form of self-respect. It's choosing to honor your spirit in a world that constantly asks you to betray it. It's showing up for yourself even when it means walking away from what once felt familiar. It's listening to your inner voice, even when the outside world is loud. And once you truly understand the value of your peace, you will never again negotiate it for approval, for comfort, or for love. Because anything that costs you your peace is too expensive, and you are done paying with pieces of yourself. Leadership is not about telling people who you are, it's about showing them. It's not about loud declarations or constant reminders. Real leadership lives in your actions, not your instructions. People may hear your words, but they remember your behavior. You set the tone not by what you demand from others, but by what you consistently demonstrate in your own life. If you want to be respected, be respectful. If you want honesty, live in truth. If you want kindness, be kind, even when it's inconvenient. If you want loyalty, show up even when no one's watching. The most powerful leaders don't need to convince others. They inspire them through example. When you lead by example, you become the message. You don't have to shout to be heard. Your consistency does the talking. Your values show up in your discipline. Your boundaries teach people how to treat you. Your integrity teaches others how to move with honor. And your peace, even in the midst of pressure, becomes a lighthouse to those who are lost in their own chaos. Leading by example is not about perfection. It's about alignment. It's about making sure your behavior matches your beliefs. Too often, people try to change the world around them without first addressing the world within. They demand accountability, but avoid self-reflection. They want others to grow, but resist their own evolution. They critique everyone else's character while excusing their own habits. But the truth is, no transformation can happen outwardly unless it starts inwardly. You can't teach what you haven't embodied. You can't expect what you don't reflect. You can't lead where you're unwilling to go yourself. People are always watching, whether you know it or not. They notice how you handle pressure, how you treat people when no one's looking, how you navigate disappointment, success, failure, temptation. They're watching how you show up when it's hard, how you apologize when you're wrong, how you stand firm when it would be easier to fold. And those moments, those quiet, unseen moments, are where real leadership is born, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not when you're being praised, but when no one is clapping. That's where your character is carved. You don't lead with a title. You lead with your life. You lead with your choices, your words, your silence, your presence. And when you do it with authenticity, people feel it. They trust you, not because you're perfect, but because you're real. They follow you, not because they have to, but because something in you reminds them of who they could become. That's the power of example. It awakens what is dormant in others. It doesn't force them to change. It invites them to rise. And let's be honest, leading by example isn't always easy. It's easier to demand, easier to instruct, easier to criticize. But the real work happens when you turn the mirror on yourself, when you ask, am I living what I'm preaching? Am I modeling what I expect? Am I showing up in a way that others can learn from, not just listen to? That kind of honesty is uncomfortable, but it's also transformational, because when you begin to lead yourself with excellence, others take notice. They feel it. They are drawn to it. Not because you're trying to be impressive, but because you're being intentional. And remember, what you tolerate in yourself, you teach others to accept. What you allow in your own life becomes the standard you set for your relationships, your work, your community. If you cut corners, others will do the same. If you're careless with your words, others will be careless with theirs. If you lead with fear, others will follow in fear. But if you lead with courage, compassion, integrity, and clarity, others will find the freedom to do the same. This is not about performance. It's about presence. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be: honest, grounded, resilient. When you lead by example, you stop trying to impress people and start inspiring them. You stop forcing change and start modeling possibility. You stop demanding perfection and start cultivating growth. And when you live that way, when you consistently show up as the example, something powerful happens. You create ripple effects you'll never fully see. You impact lives you'll never fully know, because someone somewhere is watching you and thinking, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And that is how legacy is built, not by demanding to be followed, but by living in such a way that others choose to walk beside you. There is a moment in every person's life when they must decide, will I keep making myself small to keep others comfortable, or will I finally stand tall and set the standard for how I deserve to be treated? That moment is often quiet. There is no applause, no spotlight, just you, your reflection, and the truth that's been trying to rise up inside of you. The truth that says, you don't have to keep apologizing for wanting more. You don't have to keep shrinking just to fit into someone else's narrow vision of you. Setting standards is not arrogance. It is self-respect. It is your way of telling the world, I know who I am, and I will no longer be available for less. And yet, the moment you raise your standard, you'll often be made to feel like the problem. People will say you've changed, that you're being too picky, too cold, too demanding. But what they're really saying is this: I benefited from the version of you who didn't know your worth. I was comfortable with the version of you who said yes too easily, who accepted too little, who stayed too long. And when that version of you disappears, they start to feel the loss, not of you, but of the access they once had to your time, your energy, your kindness, without accountability. Don't confuse their discomfort with your wrongness. Setting standards does not make you unkind. It makes you clear. Too many people live their whole lives trying to be agreeable at the expense of their own well-being. They twist themselves into shapes that were never meant for them. They smile through disrespect. They nod in conversations that make them feel small. They accept behavior that violates their spirit, all in the name of being liked, all in the name of keeping the peace. But peace that demands your silence is not peace. It's self-betrayal, and you do not owe anyone your silence in exchange for belonging. Setting standards is how you reclaim your voice. It's how you stop asking for permission to be treated well. It's how you take back the power you gave away in moments of fear, insecurity, or loneliness. You do not have to explain why you don't tolerate being lied to. You don't need to defend your boundaries against people who never respected them. You don't have to over-explain why you expect consistency, communication, or care. If someone cannot meet your standard, that's not your failure. It's their choice. And their choice reveals who they are, not what you're worth. When you stop apologizing for your standards, you start attracting people who rise to meet them. You stop entertaining relationships where you are merely tolerated and start building connections where you are deeply valued. You stop hoping people will change and start choosing people who don't need convincing to treat you with respect. This is the shift that changes everything, because now you're not operating from fear, you're operating from power, not control over others, but control over your own life. But let's be honest, sometimes setting standards means losing people. It means walking away from what you once thought you needed. It means making peace with the fact that not everyone can go with you. And that grief is real. You might miss the company. You might miss the history. You might even question if you're asking for too much. But remember, anything you lose by being honest about your standards was never truly aligned with you. You didn't lose them. You found yourself. And no relationship is worth losing yourself over. The people who belong in your life will never ask you to dim your light. They won't be intimidated by your growth. They won't punish you for having boundaries. They will celebrate your clarity, honor your standards, and rise with you. Because that's what love looks like when it's healthy. It's not afraid of your strength, it's drawn to it. It doesn't shrink in the face of your worth, it recognizes it. You are allowed to be discerning. You are allowed to say, this doesn't work for me. You are allowed to say no without explaining yourself. You are allowed to walk away from anything that confuses your value. That is not rudeness, that is responsibility to your own peace, your own purpose, your own becoming. You are not here to settle, you are here to soar. So stop saying sorry for wanting more. Stop apologizing for expecting better. Stop making excuses for why your heart no longer fits in the hands that used to hold it. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to outgrow places, people, and patterns. And you are allowed to protect that evolution with everything you've got. Your standards are not walls. They are doors, and not everyone will walk through them. That's okay. They weren't meant to. The ones who do will come with open hands, clear intentions, and hearts that speak the same language as yours. They won't need convincing. They'll understand. Because when you stop apologizing for your standards, you make space for what's truly meant for you. And that right there is the beginning of everything good.